Well, this is not a time to envy the ruling All Progressives Congress, that's the APC, as the party is going through its very first litmus test after their victory at the February the 25th presidential and National Assembly election. This reminds us of events in the build-up to the 2022 party primaries, where the major political parties were inundated with the idea of zoning their presidential ticket. Now, apparently, the party that managed the zoning agitation better got the result at the polls. Welcome to Standpoint. I am Precious Amayo. From that introduction, you already know the direction the show will be heading today. We're looking at the intrigues and the politicking ahead the swearing in of the 10th National Assembly lawmakers-elect. But let's take a break. When we return, we'll start these conversations. Stay with us.
These
Thanks for staying with us. You're watching Standpoint. Now, the agitations are here again as the inauguration of the 10th National Assembly draws nearer, and different geopolitical zones and interest groups are advancing various arguments to favor their preferred candidate for positions of presiding officers. Now, as the contest gets closer, the intricacies and political undercurrents that would determine the next leader of Nigeria's legislature is very important. Now, just like the president-elect, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, nursed a lifetime ambition of becoming the president of the country, some lawmakers have also for several years nursed individual ambitions and over time developed a war chest to pursue such ambition. But how this will shape governance in the upcoming administration is of interest to the nation. And joining me to talk about this in our Abuja studio is Cletus Obum. He's an APC chieftain. We also have Emeka Eze here in our Lagos studio. He's a political analyst. Good to have you, gentlemen. Let me start with you, Mr. Eze. What's your thought? I know you've been following developments just before the inauguration of the 10th Assembly. The politicking we're seeing so far, those who have indicated interest to run for various offices, especially the Speaker and Senate President. What's your thought?
Well, politics, for me, for what it is, it's interest. It's all about interest. Some of the things you heard people say prior to the elections were all in preparations for some of the things they had in mind, and now the elections are over and everyone is ready for part two. And part two is where you put this whole thing together. But then if you look at it, a whole lot of things are going to be playing out. I don't envy the president-elect because this is where a lot of decisions will have to be made. I do not envy the party leadership because a lot of thinking, a lot of careful deliberation, good decisions have to be made. Because now it's going to be on one side, it's going to be making sure that those who played active role in ensuring that victory was achieved are taken care of, and another is to ensure that you create, an atmosphere of inclusion where everyone, relatively is accommodated. And that's what zoning, is about. And then on another hand is to ensure that there's a balance. For some positions are considered more lucrative than others, and so people are going to be looking at level of the input that people made during the election. So you wouldn't expect the zone who probably gave so much to a candidate who won elections to get more than a zone, less than a zone who didn't, in quotes, give that much. So too many things are going to be looked at. It's going to be about interest. It's going to be about paying back people for the good deeds, in quote, the good deeds they've done. It's going to be about selecting those who have the experience, the wherewithal to handle these positions in the House. Because take it or leave it, any mistakes made, in picking the right people to run the National Assembly would be the big blow.
And we'll get to that shortly, whether, reward or balance it should take priority. But let me get to Mr. Cletus Obum in our Abuja studio. You listen to Mr. Eze here speaking about how this should play out, rewarding those who have given so much to the party, and then not expecting those who did not give so much to the party shouldn't expect so much. But some have also spoken about balancing the ticket But let me ask you why your party, whether you think your party is doing enough to spearhead the composition of the legislative leadership, because it seems to be some level of silence from the APC.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on this program. I've lost contact.
Mr. Obum, can you hear me now?
I can hear you. I lost contact.
All right, so I was asking you if you think your party is doing enough to spearhead the composition of the legislative leadership, because some say that your party has been too silent.
Well, again, lost.
All right, looks like I'm not sure Mr. Obum can hear me. Let me come back to you. All right, I understand he can hear me. Mr. Obum, did you get my question?
Yes, very well. So,
all right, so my question is
to the point.
All right, go ahead, please.
I must say that APC is not silent. There is so much going on, and so much work going on within the party, and especially within the leadership of the party. Remember that after the banana peel of 2015, the party had a lot of lessons to learn. And because of that, 2019, there was a lot of addressing and undressing a lot of the issues that characterized the 2015 National Assembly leadership, which pushed and pitched the National Assembly against the executive. But by 2019, during that repair, by 2023, you will understand why APC is not upbeat, because we are now more confident, we are now more organized, and we have learned our lessons. And so the leadership is taking its time to look at what it is. But no matter what the party does, one thing is very clear. And I am happy that my brother Eze has made the point clearly that there must be reward for hard work. A system in which you work so hard and get so little discourages political activity and loyalty. All forms of loyalty must be sufficiently rewarded. There must be servicing of loyalty. So if everybody sits back and waits for balance, because there is a delicate problem between the issue of balance, equity, fairness, and the issue of rewarding hard work. In the political game, it is hard work that has to be rewarded first. Otherwise, you are going to get people waiting for others to work, and then they come and take it on the basis of equity and balance. If you do not win an election, you don't expect the reward for winning an election. And you don't expect to be rewarded for losing an election. I give you the statistics. In the entire South-South, for example, where I come from, and this entire Southeast, because if you look at it, I'm sure that you are going to drift into the issue of zoning later on. But to cut a long story short, because this program is timed, let me give you the statistics of what transpired. Before today, you will agree that every time a president comes from northern Nigeria, it follows that the Senate president comes from northern Nigeria, and the speaker comes from southern Nigeria, as it is presently happening. In the event of, you will exclude the 2015 crisis, 2007, where we lost the president of Nigeria, and already a Senate president was sitting. It was understandable for everybody to agree that the Senate president should remain in the north, even when Jonathan became president. And so you will take that as an exception to the rule, because the doctrine of necessity was invoked. Today, if you are taking it that the president is going to the south and has gone to the south, and therefore the Senate president is coming from the south, you can't bring him from the southwest in the name of equity or in the name of balancing. It will come from whether the southeast or the south-south. Again, if you look at the south-south and the pecking order, the south-south has not become Senate president since 1999 in this round in the Fourth Republic. But the Southeast have, for 8 years under the Obasanjo regime, produced the Senate president. Therefore, it is only in the interest of national stability, in the interest of brotherhood of one nation, that the South-South should be given the right of first refusal in the pecking order for the position of Senate President. To that extent, you also agree with what Eze said, that in the contribution to who becomes president, the South-South had 25 or more than 25% in the 6 states of the South-South. On the contrary, in the 5 states of the South-East, the APC did not get 5% in the 5 states put together. We didn't get that. Yet, we produced senators from that area in an election that took place the same day, same time, and at the same venue, in the same police units. We lost all, didn't get 5% in the 5 states put together. So if you are now going to give reward, if you are now going to compensate, if you are going to be fair in terms of economic justice, in terms of social justice, in terms of political justice, clearly the South-South will be asking for it, and rightly so. And I think the rest of Nigeria, and I'm aware that some people from northern Nigeria are angling to become Senate President from the South, Northwest, Northeast, and all that. But I do not think that they are serious about that. I'm sure they are just flying a kite, that if they cannot reach the sky, at least they will reach the roof. That is what they are doing. But the Southeast brothers of ours must agree that having produced in 24 years, in 37 days' time, it will be 24 years. Out of those 24, 1/3, that is 8 years of those years, the Senate President came from the Southeast, and the 5 states of the Southeast produced each of them a Senate President within that 8 years. So it is only fair, politically, that having produced so much results that produced the President,
let me put you on hold,
it is also politically correct.
I want Mr. Eze to respond to some of the things you have said. You've talked about, you seem to be making a case for the South-South, but those in North Central also say, look, we need to be brought into the scheme of things. Southeast have said they've been left out of national leadership representation for a while. I know you're here as a political analyst, but you're also from the Southeast. But you already also said, look, those who did not, it's a reward system and not really about balancing. My first question to you would be, when you talk about the reward system, for the nation, which should take preeminence? Should it be the balancing for the nation or the reward system for the sake of the party? Well,
for me, I've always been a serious advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And as beautiful as it is, our Constitution also encourages that. My brother made it look like what I said had endorsed, but that was taken out of context. What I was saying was, for politicians, that's the in thing, that's the norm, within the political circle. But what exactly does Nigeria need at this time? What exactly, there's a lot of tension. And you would agree with me that's why I said that I don't envy the president-elect, because a lot of careful thought and decisions would have to be made, because if mistakes are made with this, that's another blow. And then I'm saying that he said something. He talked about, he made it look, like you said, he made a case for the South-South, but I don't see it that way. For me, the first thing we'll look at, if you're saying the South-South haven't, gotten the Senate President, in a number of years, and you're also not telling us if the South-South has gotten the presidency within those period of time. So we're talking balance here. We're not talking about just the Senate presidency or the speakership of the House of Assembly. We're looking at the balance where when we have a president from the Southwest, a vice president from the Northeast, then we're able to see other positions have other parts of the country properly accommodated. So if you look at it from that context, then it wouldn't be fair to say because the Southeast has held the Senate president for that long. Moreover, there are other things to look at. It's not just about the leadership of the House.
But do you think that he has a point? Because when you look at the nomenclature of the National Assembly, let's just even start from 1999. Because if you take it further, you also realize that you had more Southeasterners like Nnamdi Azikiwe, one for Rizu, Dennis Osadebe, even way before 1999. But when you now look at from 1999, Evan Ewere, Chuba Kadibo, Adolphus Wabara, Kenu Namani, those were all people from the Southeast.
You are talking about one arm of government. I'm talking about balance in the government. And so for every time these people were there for that arm of government, what happened to other arms of government? We're talking balance here. And when we're talking balance, everything is put on the table. Now, if you have someone from the Southwest occupying the number one position in the country, you have someone from the Northeast, and then a part of the country that hasn't been accommodated in a while, with respect to from the executive arm, is seen as not being, properly accommodated. And we're saying that's not for me to decide, because the drama is big. It doesn't end at just picking who's going ahead, the red or the green chamber. Don't forget, we're having the biggest drama about to play out. In the past, we used to have one party as the ruling party and another as the opposition. Now there's going to be a battle. There's going to be slugging for what's going to happen at with the minority. So everybody has to look at it. We have to see it for what it is. And I said it earlier. I said, if we make mistakes in the name of just trying to please one part of the section of the country, and you disenfranchise or make anyone feel disenfranchised, another section of the country, then we're starting the whole drama all over again. And don't forget, like I said the last time I came on this show, I said, in healing wounds, you don't beat a child and tell the child how to cry. It's important for us to begin to look at ways to ensure that everyone is accommodated, and the things that we say we're going to be doing, we're going to be doing them. All
right, let me get back to Mr. Abum, who is making a case, as it were, for the South-South. What you are basing your claim on the fact that, look, in the South-South, almost every state, if not all the states, the APC had 25% of the vote. But the Northwest is also making a case, since we're talking about rewards, and they have said, look, they turned out well and did very well in terms of votes for the APC during the presidential election, and that they also should be rewarded. In terms of reward, if we're going by that, shouldn't it be zoned to the Northwest and not necessarily the South-South?
First of all, social justice and political justice will not permit the North to aspire for Senate presidency. It will be wrong for anybody in North Central, Northeast, or Northwest to aspire for the Senate presidency at this time. It is disruptive, it is provocative, and should not be allowed just for the sake of politics. It's not for politics' sake. And like we keep saying about balancing, and we have three arms of government. The major ones are the executive. What the Southeast, for example, is asking for is that they have not had opposition within the executive. In the legislature, they have had enough of that. They've had deputy Senate presidents, they've had Senate presidents within this period. And they've had secretary to government within this period at the executive level. And of course, what the Constitution ensures and guarantees is that no part of this Constitution or no part of this country shall be disenfranchised or disadvantaged on account of religion, tribe, or sex. That is to say that the Constitution guarantees that every state in the Federation will have a minister, for example. Every part of this country must participate and have 3 senators, every state, no matter the size of the state. All those are guarantees, institutional and constitutional guarantees, that have ensured our unity and cohesion as a country. Now, coming to the National Assembly as an arm of government, we are saying to you that your anger, for example, in the Southwest, in the Southeast, is that you have not held the executive position. So also is the South-South saying that in case of economic contribution, in terms of political contribution, and in terms of social justice and political justice, they should be given this chance. But again, the Northwest you are talking about, just produce a president for 8 years. For 8 years, it is only fair that if they have to be rewarded, it should be in other areas, certainly not in the sharing table and sharing formula of the country, whose cohesion and whose threat to peace lies clearly in the manner in which there is a distribution of the commonwealth of the country, which also includes political offices. Having said that, let me again go back to what I have insisted upon, that within this country called Nigeria today, the most battered of all these zones, which used to be regions, is the South-South, which lays the golden egg for this country and which has been neglected for over a period. And you remember that in the past, this has led to a lot of agitations manifesting in such violent convulsions like the militancy in the Niger Delta, which brought about a drop in the oil production and therefore oil revenues, which running a mono economy becomes a major crisis. We do not want to get back to those things. In the Southeast, for example, the agitation for control of executive power, the agitation for that there was negligence of that area, has brought us to what we are seeing, the kind of militancy we are seeing in that area, from IPOD to ESN and all that. All this have to be taken care of in the careful distribution And I agree with Eze that it is a very tenuous period for our country, that we are on tenterhooks because presently not giving equitable distribution of resources and positions in this present dispensation will lead to further agitations that will increase and exacerbate and indeed escalate our violent nature as it is today, from the banditry in the north through the militancy in the southeast, and of course the subdued anger in the south-south. So for me, I imagine that what should be going on in the minds of everybody is how to settle out, because if you don't have a stable country and a peaceful country, all we are asking for will amount to nothing. You will just be sitting as a president or senate president and cannot act and add anything to your country and to the betterment
I'm sure that
of
you
your
know
citizens.
that all of this agitation isn't just in the south-south, but we'll talk about it when we return from this commercial break. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. You're watching Standpoint, and we're discussing the intrigues just before the inauguration of the 10th National Assembly. We've seen the jostling, the lobbying, and the indication of interest is it run now for the principal office as one of the principal officers in the 10th Assembly. A lot of names have been put out there, whether by those interested parties themselves or different support groups. But I'm still speaking with Cletus Obum, who is in our Abuja studio. He's an APC chieftain, and so far he's been making a case for the South-South. And we also have Emeka, is a political analyst, who seems to be speaking on the fact that, look, there has to be balance and then a reward system as well. Thank you both for staying with us. Just before I come to you, let me get back to Mr. Cletus Obum, who was talking about agitations. And I was saying just before that break that you know that when it comes to agitation, every region has been agitating for one thing or the other. It's not just the South-South. In fact, agitation is rife now, even in the Southeast, where they say they are marginalized. And if we're going by that, some would say give it to the Southeast. But I want to ask you about how your party is handling this, the APC. Are you worried that if you do not speak up soon and give a clear direction, there might be the opposition lawmakers-elect could spring a surprise usurpation on some of these positions?
Well, I have told you from the beginning that
Mr. Obum, please go ahead.
All right. I said to you that APC is not silent. APC is not silent. We are working behind the scenes. We are working on the ground, and there are committees and there are setups across that shows that APC is organizing itself. And it doesn't have to become, this is the period for lobbying. Let me inform you that the political game, the lubricant with which the political game is going is operated upon, that oils the wheels of politics. The lubricant for political oiling is negotiation. And I think that is what is going on now. We are not unmindful of the fact that we have just 55 or 57 members of the National Assembly, and we need at least 2/3 to be comfortable. And therefore, it will require a lot of political negotiations, a political maneuverings, a lot of targeting of the opposition, which for the first time in our political history, we have 8 political parties in the National Assembly, unlike before where you used to have 2 or 3, with some of them having just 1 or 2. This time you have parties that have up to 20, 30 members, and that counts a lot. So APC is not mindful of this. And don't forget that you are dealing with a political colossus who has been in this game and in the trenches. He's been a governor, he's been a senator, he's been a negotiator, and he's been a political leader over a long period and has demonstrated the sufficient sagacity and knowledge of what the political game is. Therefore, nothing is going to take us by surprise. And I can assure you that the actors in the political game, especially of the APC fold, are going into the negotiations believing that it is a give and take and that we do not have a winner-takes-all situation. Because the positions in Parliament, don't forget, there are committees, like somebody mentioned there, there are committees that they call juicy. Others are also strategic committees, both in the Senate and in the House of Reps. So you are going to get those things negotiated. You are going to house leadership. You have, beyond the Senate President and Speaker, there are deputies. There are minority majority leader. There are whips and other such positions. There are special committees. All these are going to influence how voting will take place on the day for leadership of the two chambers of the National Assembly. But the APC will not in any way. We have 160 out of 360 in the House of Reps. We have 57 in the Senate. Therefore, I am confident and I am aware that the party is doing so and working so hard that you'll be shocked, like it happened in 2019, that by June, after the inauguration, you are going to have a smooth sail of that National Assembly in terms of the leadership production. We are so confident about that because we are doing so much about
quickly,
it. But like I said,
are you likely to zone it, or you are going to line up behind different candidates for different positions?
Certainly to be zoned. You can't leave it for free for all. Like you said, for us to stabilize as a country, we must consciously and deliberately take care of the various interests. And the interests are variegated. They are major and they are fundamental to the stability of our country. So if, for example, you now tell us that the Southwest, if you say you should leave it free for all, the Southwest can as well tell you we produce most of the votes. We got 90% of the votes in the Southwest. Therefore, they are also likely to come out to say they are also qualified. Will that be fair? Will that be just? Socially, politically, and otherwise? So I am not aware. And the Constitution is very clear about this. The Constitution is very clear about zoning and federal character. That positions shall be held and economic justice must be done. And that is why you are going to get a situation where the entire country will have to wait and see what APC will do. We cannot wish away the fact that it was a big problem for us to dealing with a Muslim ticket. Today we are back here. We cannot afford not to take political notice of that. As the lawyers will say, take judicial notice. We will take sufficient political notice of that very challenge we had during the campaigns. Having escaped it, we cannot go into another one in the National Assembly leadership. So I'm very conscious, and the party is very conscious of the fact that it has to do something dramatically different in order to stabilize the feelings and assuage the impression that some religions or some sections of the country are going to be relegated to the background. That certainly will not do well because we have another election to run, we have the country to stabilize, and we have the economic prosperity that we promised the people, and we cannot renew the hope of Nigerians by engaging in sectionalism and deprivation or subjugation of some parts of this country or some people in this country on account of their minority status, on account of their religion, or on account of their tribe. This will not be allowed, and the APC is very conscious and working assiduously to ensure that all sections and all interests are properly propagated and rooted in the party and in the country to make for a smooth sail for the incoming government and for the government that is going to take over from the past APC government. If anything else, there is nothing we are going to do better than to again engage in proper zoning to the South-South and bring out the best quality that we can. That does not mean that any part of this country does not have quality people to represent it. I don't agree that we are looking for the best man. There is best man in every village in this country. From Bumaji down to Okurikan to entire of Egbaland, there are enough quality people. Whether you are coming from Gambarungala, whether you are going to Shendam, there are quality people in every village in this country. Therefore,
right,
the issue of saying we are looking for quality person does not arise at all.
Let me bring the conversation to Mr. Eze. Mr. Eze, you've heard Mr. Obama. One of the things he talked about was that balancing, religious balancing. People will say, look, this country has never been this divided, especially during this election.
I agree.
A lot of people were playing on the ethnic and religious cards, and we saw how people were aligning based on that. How important is it that even while it is considering zoning, that that religious balancing is also considered for the 10th National Assembly?
Thank you very much, and that's why I placed balancing ahead of the reward that we talked about. And as far as I'm concerned, I'll continue to say, and I'll continue to say, that it is more important, as far as I'm concerned, that a lot more attention is paid to the balancing. And when I talk about balancing, there's so many factors that are played out right now. And in picking the right people to lead, the arms of the parliament, a lot of work needs to be done. For the first time, we're having half of voted parliamentarians first-timers. For the first time, we have a lot of parties lined up, positioned for actions that would play around within the minority. So there's so many things. It's not going to be, the negotiations and the discussions are not just going to be, hey, please come, you hold on to this, I hold on.
Business as usual.
Yeah, no business as usual. And so it's going to be very difficult. But if we look at it, and in the wisdom of the leadership of the party, the ruling party, the one that has one, like I would always say, that has the, the whole thing on its table, I would encourage them to look at it and ensure balance. It's not just about those who the Southeast has had this for this period of time. It's not about Mr. Obum talked about other positions like chief whip and chief this, and we know these things, but there's hierarchy. There's a president, there's a vice president, there's the Senate president, there's the Speaker of the House of Assembly, there's Chief Judge. We know
those are the line of
that's the
succession.
sequence. And if you really want people to feel accommodated, then you would have to make sure all the tribes are accommodated. And that's why, I would encourage the government coming in to adopt the template used between 1999 and 2007, the one Olusegun Obasanjo came in with. You would see that the leadership at that time had everyone on the table. And that, created ease. I'm not going to be pessimistic, but if the wrong things are done, if the wrong moves are made, kicking off with this National Assembly, the 10th National Assembly, would be in the hands of God.
You are from the Southeast. I want to ask, will you also make a case for the Southeast?
I would have, but I wanted to keep my discussions at the level of analysis. But if you ask me, it is only fair, it is only just, it's only right to having the Southeast that hasn't even had a go. We talked about the Southeast being, you should have been the Southeast for the presidency. I've always advocated for that in the interest of balancing things. But then it has played out the way it is. It came to the South, and someone from another section of the South, or the southern part of the country, won it. That's settled. And then moving on, I think that to ensure that everyone feels accommodated, it is only normal for us to say the Southeast, where it's been the way it is in recent times, where things have been a bit hot, these people feel disenfranchised. They feel they're no longer part of the country. It's only normal for us to say, okay, this is my government, and this, I'm going to be saying these people will come in and then take this, okay? The South has produced the president in recent times. The Southwest has produced the president in recent times. The Northeast has done that. And we're talking about holding positions of government. It's not about just Senate presidency, chief whip, but we're looking at the whole thing holistically. And if you say
I know
in
that
this,
someone, like, sorry to jump in, I know that Orji Zokalu is making a play for the Senate presidency. Benjamin Kalu has come up for the Speaker of the House of Reps. But I want to ask you, because from what Mr. Cletus Obum said, he has said the region who, and that's with the reward system, the region that doesn't give so much to the party. If, for example, maybe the party is thinking, if I am not going to be able to whip up enough votes from your region, then if you do not have enough influence to bring enough votes to the table, why should we put you there in the first place? And do you think that should also be a consideration, or just look
he
balanced?
mentioned the word negotiation, and that's key in politics. Most times it's not about your own negotiating power, it's a collective thing. It's party, it's group. And some people have, and it's about interest. There are lobbyists out there who are moving it. And you mentioned Orji Zokalu, he's a credible candidate for it. But then you're not going to write off the likes of Osita Izunaso, who is also a ranking member of the Senate, and so many other people. And so I am saying that these are the mistakes some of the political parties made in recent times, and they pay dearly for it. If you don't get it right from the beginning, if we, because we're going to be talking about getting the leadership of the party, and then we're going to be talking about how we move on with this National Assembly, how the whole things go on. There was a beautiful point you raised where you told him that if nothing was done, if they continue to stay quiet, that the opposition could spring surprises. And that I have said in recent times that I don't think it's impossible, And the only way that people would say, okay, well, let's stay quiet, or let's stay a bit calm, or let's not do too much, is when the ruling party comes up and says, well, or let me put it this way, when the ruling party comes up and does the right thing. And now
What's the right
I
thing,
hit,
in your opinion?
in my opinion, I think the best thing to do right now is to strike a balance. There is a part of the country that feels disenfranchised, and it is only normal and right for the position of the Senate President to zone to the southeast.
Okay.
That would help strike a balance.
No one seems to be talking about the House of Reps. Everyone seems to be jostling for both Mr. Kletu and Mr. Eze here, both talking about the Senate presidency going to the south and the southwest. Let me ask you, Mr. Obum, first of all, to react to what Mr. Eze said, and then what do you think should happen at the House of Reps?
Well, for me, the House of Reps, naturally, it is not correct to say that we...
Mr. Obum, please go ahead.
Well, it is not very correct to suggest that APC not speaking at this point. It is also a strategy not to come out too early. You have to weigh the options. You don't zone for zoning's sake. You zone because you have an interest, and that interest must coincide with the overall interest of the group. Because when people say government policy is a game of interest, it's a game of the majority, interest of the majority, not interest of a minority few. Even though most of the time the minority, by the elite theory, will tell you that it is the minority views that parade themselves as majority views or opinion. But essentially, to come to this point, the issue of the speakership, of course, like I have told you, the zoning pattern had shown that each time the president comes from one part of the country, the first part of zoning is north-south, then the geopolitical zones. Within the north today, the northwest can justifiably make a case for itself, given its contribution to this present dispensation, notwithstanding the fact that they produce that. But the north center will make the same case with the southeast, that it has gotten nothing so far. But it is keeping the national chairman in the hierarchy of party politics, including the executive, which is never ever mentioned, is the national chairman of the party, who is from the north central. And then the northeast is keeping the vice president. Therefore, it is only natural that the northwest, which contributed so much and will be leaving the position of presidency, will require to have the speakership. If you do that arithmetic, if you do that political calculation and permutation, you will come to the conclusion that the Northwest should produce the speakership of the House. Now, you have just mentioned somebody from the Southeast wanting to be speaker. So what actually do the Izunasors and the Ojus Okalus want to prove with a speaker coming again from that same zone? Now, you come to the South. If you are talking about ranking senators, you will agree that in ranking, it is about you were in the Senate, yes, what position did you hold? In the South today, we have a person who has been a minority leader. To be minority leader is different from being a committee chairman or from being a whip or such other positions. So you have an Akpabio, a Godswill Akpabio, who was governor, minister, and presently is a senator, a ranking senator. Not just a ranking senator, but has held leadership position in that Senate. So if it's about ranking, if it is about experience and exposure, he has held both executive and legislative power before today. So you will find that
Ojus Okalu will also make the same claim. Ojus Okalu was also governor. I mean, he was governor. He was his chief whip. Can he also make the same claim as to his pedigree?
He cannot make the claim that he was a minister. He cannot say that he was a minister. He cannot say he was a minister, and he cannot say that as a chief whip he is senior to a minority leader. I have been a parliamentarian, so I should know. I should know that a minority leader is not the equivalent of a whip, and that the minister experience and that of governor are two different things, governing a state and being minister at the national level and controlling 9 states, including the Niger Delta Development Commission and all that, gives you an edge. But like I said, in terms of even performance, if we have to break it down, but essentially I will tell you that one has been governor, minister, and senator, and been minority leader and a ranking senator. The other has been a governor, has been a senator, has not been a minister. So even if you take it at that, you see Akpabio flying high above every other person within southern Nigeria today. In the south and in the southeast put together, Akpabio will rank far, far higher. So that is why we're saying, first of all, I didn't want us to start mentioning names, but since you wanted to show the quality of people that are coming on board, you will find an uncommon Senate president in Godswill Akpabio, clearly. But like I said, we have to first lay the foundation of the quality and pedigree of the people we are discussing. And that brings us to the point where we are saying the speakership does not in any way play a second fiddle. Yes, no House of Reps member, every House of Reps member aspires to be a senator, but no senator aspires to be a House of Reps member. So if we tend to pay more attention to the Senate, it is understandable and it should be pardoned. But that is not in any way to say that in our bicameral legislature, that the House of Reps is in any way inferior. Because in making us have a two-level bicameral legislature, it is only to say that checks and balances must be very, very keenly followed by our constitution and by our rule. So the Senate presidency to the South in particular, and the Senate the speakership of the House goes to the North. The SGF and other such positions are also executive positions. Our brothers in the Southeast will need us to support them to produce the next president after this. So in dealing with us, they should know, like Zeke will tell us, that in burying your political opponent, you should bury him and leave one finger up, because you might need him. Use that one finger and bring him out. They should leave the South as their nearest neighbor and show enough understanding, enough brotherhood, that this time, if it is legislature, we have had enough. You take it now. Then when it comes to presidency, please leave us. Because at that time, they will argue that you have tasted it for 6 years with Jonathan. So please leave us. That argument will be very strong at that point. But today, they should also support us to hold the legislature so that we sit on the table of the very economic resources that we are suffering for in the South. This is the
Mr.
only
Obum,
plea we are making to our brothers in the
South.
South.
Mr. Eze, he seems to be laughing here when you made that statement. Mr. Eze, you were laughing. You want to respond to Mr. Obum?
Mr. Obum was almost going to blackmail me, and that was on a lighter note. Believe me, this is. I admire the passion, and I like your style of politicking. Where you're trying as much as possible to promote your candidate for the Senate presidency. But then I'll come back to what I said before. It's about balance. I'm not saying this because I'm from the Southeast. I want to agree with him that the speakership of the House of Representatives should go to the Northwest in the spirit of equity and inclusion. But for that same reason, that's the same reason why the Senate presidency should go to the Southeast. And I'm glad you mentioned one of the candidates you mentioned, Jose Zakalo. I was quick to add that even Osita Izunaso is a ranking member and very qualified, to lead, the Red Chamber. The truth is, it is a decision for the APC to make. I am more interested in what plays out with the opposition.
If the Southeast were to get a position of maybe a deputy Senate president or deputy speaker, how will the Southeast see that?
In one word, insult. In just one word, an insult. But then, it is the decision of the party that holds the day. And if it is their wish to ensure that everyone is carried along, if it's their wish for the 10th Assembly to be one that would function, where deliberations will be, we won't spend too much time with the drama that plays. There's some political dramas, you've watched some of them happen in the past, where just the selection of leadership of this arm of government, stalls the process of development in the country for a long time. And I'm saying it's only proper, it's only nice for us to say this section of the country that feels, in quotes, disenfranchised, be accommodated with one of the lead roles in government. We have the presidency, we have the vice presidency, we have the Senate presidency, we have the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and we have the Chief Judge. Recently, we've had someone from the Southwest, we've had someone from the South, we've had someone, for these 4 positions, we've had people from different, and before now, it's always been the same deputy that you're talking about coming to the Southeast. And for the first time, apart from, the Senate presidency that we talked about, and now we're to strike a balance with what has played out after the elections and to ensure everyone is carried along. It is only proper for us to say, let the Southeast have it. The Southwest, the Northwest have the speakership, and then the South can have, there are other positions, just like Mr. Obum mentioned. He pointed out so many positions, but I don't know why we're gluing to this one that seems, in quote, to be, I don't want to say the bet right, but the right thing to give the Southeast at this time, if we want to carry this section of the country.
All right, so let me ask Mr. Obum if the South will be satisfied with the position of maybe the Deputy Senate President or the Deputy Speaker.
Between 1999 and today, we have had two deputy speakers from Rivers State, Chibudoguche and, of course, his brother, Opara. The two of them came from Rivers State. That is all we have got in the National Assembly in terms of, then later on we had a Senate leader and all that, which is neither here nor there. So if anybody deserves to be pitied, if anybody deserves to be rewarded, whether it is reward or it is compensation, it is the South-South. The reason is simple. You are going to be laying a dangerous precedent in which all you need to do is to plead equity and balance while losing elections. I ask the question, how will you justify that you contested the election for Senate the same day, same time, same minute, with the same ballot papers in your hands and got 40,000 votes, and the president you want to be Senate president to got less than 1,000 votes? Does it add up that you should be rewarded for that kind of voting pattern? If there was no voting to bring about the president, will you want to produce a majority that you are going to be asking to be Senate president to? So it is very dangerous in politics because emotions, most of the time, is just hot air. It doesn't signify anything because it's about what you bring to the table. You have to contribute. You have to work hard to win and then be rewarded. So for me, it is not about balance for balance sake. It's balance. The reason why you bring positions to places is to hold the party strong, to continue to win elections in order to give to the people the welfare and security which is guaranteed by the Constitution. To that extent, it's only good and fair to balance between contribution and consumption rather than engage in only consumption. So you cannot be expecting to eat and eat without working. So if a man works, does he not deserve to be rewarded?
Will you consider someone like Echuba Kadigbo, who was from, I know he's of Igbo extraction, but he was from Delta State. Will you consider him to be from the South-South?
Echuba Kadigbo is from Oyi in Anambra State.
Oh, Anambra State, sorry, I got Anambra State. You're right. Please go ahead.
Now,
you were speaking, please go ahead, you're right.
The 5 states, yes. So I want to make that point that if anybody deserves to be rewarded, it is the political actor that acts upon the system to produce a result that should be rewarded. That is also balancing. Balancing is not just about putting positions. It is putting people in a place where they can produce results that will continue to keep a party in government. If you keep, I'll give you an example. Never, I was state chairman of ACN, I was in the National Executive Committee of ACN, and we came to APC. At no time have we gotten any result that will make a president emerge. In fact, the last time we ever attempted it was in Imo State. So I want to say that balancing also should be balancing between hard work and reward for hard work. It is not just balancing about tribe and religion. It's also balancing about the input and the output. If your input is less, you shouldn't have expecting maximum output. So the more you work, the more you should be rewarded. And that is what the political game is about. So for us, the Southeast will be losing nothing. If, for example, they get a secretary to government of the Federation and let the South-South take this Senate presidency, because it will not add much to the agitation of the Southeast if a Senate president is produced. They produced it before. What was the difference? They produced Senate president, deputy Senate president. What was the result? So it is not the legislation that they are looking for. They are looking for the executive power, and they should be ready for us to support them. And the only way to do so is to guarantee us that they are not an oppressive majority, that they won't oppress the minorities of the South-South just because they have the strength. They should also remember that on the table of economics, we have contributed more than 70% of Nigerians' income. What they are aspiring to go and distribute comes from the South-South. And I don't know why they should think that we should be smelling from the kitchen what we ought to be cooking and participating in. So it is not enough for us to be spectators in our own game. And the South-South should be given that opportunity.
All right, I have just about a minute or 30 seconds left. I want to give it to Mr. Eze to also wrap up his thoughts as we wind down this conversation.
Quickly, I just want to say it's a big job. I'm not with the APC, and Mr. Obum has spoken, but it's important for him to know as well that whoever is produced, if it's a party decision, is going to be coming from the party. So when you talk about hard work, the word hard work is relative. A lot of them have put in so much at the national, state, and local government levels for these elections, especially for those of them from that party extraction. And then for the positions, like I said before, it is, and I'll repeat, it is only fair that the Southeast is accommodated. He's talking about hard work. He's talking about those who put something to the table. Something encourages the people to be part of the system later on. And, accommodating them is a good way of saying, come, we can do this together. It's not about, we're not discussing the CV of those who are coming. We're not discussing this is what's played out, this is what didn't play out. We're talking about assembling a government that would ensure Nigeria remains one, that would ensure Nigeria walks towards, general success of the nation. And as such, it is important to ensure everyone is carried along. And for a while, this section of the country, the Southeast, has not had, its own share. And, for the Senate presidency, there are candidates that are credible. You've mentioned Ojo Zakalu. I've added to it that Osita Izunaso is credible as well. And I would appreciate that my brother, Mr. Obum, please, do not take it to mean that we, there was a name he used for it, there was a word he used, marginalizing minority or something. It's not like that. It's just to ensure that we are all accommodated.
I do have to leave it there. Both of you agree on one thing, which is that the speakership should be zoned to the Northwest. At
least,
all fairness. If you agree on anything, is that one thing. But we'll see how the APC takes this and what it does with this. Anyway, thank you so both for talking to us. We're watching this lobbying and this politicking ahead the inauguration of the 10th Assembly. I've been speaking with Mr. Cletus Obum in Abuja studio, and he's an APC
Please correct that name. Correct that name. It's N, not M. That name is N, not M.
N. Obun.
It's Obun.
Obun. Oh, thank you so much for that correction.
Yes. N, not M.
Thank you,
yes.
thank you. We'll make the correction. Thank you so much. And then we've also been speaking with Emeka Eze, who is a political analyst. And that's where we'll leave it. You've been watching Standpoint.